Hello, IB Bio students. We are continuing today with topic 11.1, and we are specifically looking at allergens today. So the essential understanding is white blood cells release histamine in response to allergens. Remember that I've told you before that there are different white blood cells, right? Last time we only talked about particular leukocytes like macrophages. Um, Today we're going to talk about different ones. So, an allergen is an environmental substance that triggers an immune response despite not being intrinsically harmful. So, that means it's not really going to hurt you, right? Like pollen, but it will trigger an immune response. So this immune response tends to be localized to the region of exposure. So if you breathe in through your airways and throat, that's where the allergic reaction is going to happen. Now, sometimes a severe systemic allergic reaction is called anaphylaxis, and this can be fatal if left untreated. So, for example, you've heard of people who perhaps have a peanut allergy, and that could lead to anaphylactic shock. And if that's not treated with an EpiPen, then the person could potentially die. So, an allergic reaction requires a pre-sensitized immune state, and this is what we call a prior exposure to the allergen, and this is how this happens. So, when a B cell, so here you have here you have a plasma cell. So when a B cell encounters an allergen, so let's say that this is the allergen, the pollen grain, and the allergen has a specific antigenic determinant or a specific antigen. So when the B cell encounters this allergen, it's going to differentiate into a plasma cell. And then that plasma cell is going to make large quantities of antibody IgE. Now, these antibodies, what they do is that they attach to these mast cells, which are other types of white blood cells of our immune system. Okay? So this is what we call sensitization, which is initial exposure to the allergen. Okay, and this is what we mean by a prior exposure or a pre-sensitized immune state. So what happens the second time you're exposed to the same allergen? And this is what we call the actual allergic reaction. So in this instance, the allergen, just the pollen in this case, is going to bind to the antibodies on mast cells. And then what the mast cells do is they release this molecule called histamine. And it is this molecule that causes the allergic symptoms. And then you start your allergic reaction that can vary, right, in degrees of severity. So when you take an anti-allergy drug, you take an antihistamine. So what you're trying to do is prevent this histamine molecule to be released from your mast cells. So let's look and see how histamine, which is that molecule released by the mast cells, how histamine causes an allergic reaction. So the release of histamine from the primed mast cells causes an inflammatory response. And this is what results in the allergic reaction. Now, think that the allergic reaction is a response to an antigen, right? To something that is foreign in your body. So your body is trying to help you, but in that process, what you end up feeling is really not very well, right? So you have some inflammation that is going to improve leukocyte mobility to go and target those infected regions. You have vasodilation, which is the widening of the blood vessels to improve the circulation of blood and improve the circulation of those leukocytes to that area where the antigen is. And this vasodilation causes redness, and that's why your eyes and your nose get all teary and red. And it causes heat also. You might feel warm in that place where the allergic reaction is taking place. So sometimes this increased permeability is going to lead to swelling where more fluids leak from the blood and pain because the swelling causes compression of nerves. So, as part of an allergic response, you feel all of this. You feel redness, heat, swelling, localized pain. So, here you see the inflammatory response. So, here you see what happens when the histamine, that molecule, is released from the IgE primed mast cells as a response to an allergen, which is the antigen. So here you see capillary widening, and this is to increase blood flow, and it results in heat. You see increased permeability, and this releases fluid into the tissues, and it might cause redness and swelling. You might find attraction of leukocytes, so the white blood cells that are there to fight off that antigen are attracted to this region. So extravasation of leukocytes to that site of injury is going to cause some tenderness. And sometimes you get a systemic response, a little bit of a fever and proliferation of leukocytes, and that might cause a little bit of pain. So all in all, this inflammatory response due to the allergen, if it doesn't lead to anaphylactic shock, you're not going to feel very well, right? But it's not something that is going to kill you. So that is it for allergens. I hope you enjoyed it.